One of my favourite memory beta vessels is the Excalibur. Not only is it named after an iconic mythology that I enjoy, but it also had a crew that was not your standard Federation norm, such as its captain, the Savage, Mackenzie Calhoun. But let's look into where the name originated from in Star Trek lore, as well as touching on real-world history. I'm a little more awake than the last video I did, so hopefully I won't jumble my dates again. So, the name obviously derives from Arthurian legend as the name of King Arthur's supposedly magically imbued sword. The factual history of this weapon has been lost to time, but the myths continue to add to its value and relevance as a weapon only wielded by the just and virtuous. Surprisingly though, the naval history of the namesake vessels are just as ambiguous. I couldn't dig up much on the name Excalibur, though it is possible some ships' stories have just been lost with time. I was able to find references to an Excalibur that operated prior to 1634, but only the name, and that it was likely a British ship that had cannons. From the will of Randall Jenkins, a gunner's mate on the ship. There was the SS Excalibur, a cruise ship in 1931, but during the Second World War it was rechristened the USS Joseph Hughes AP-50 in 1942. It was primarily used under this name as a transport vessel for troops and cargo, but was sunk within a year. It's also the name of the M982 artillery shell, and several other projects. We do have a first for this series, the HMS Excalibur S-40, and it was not a ship, it was a boat. It and its sister boat, the HMS Explorer, were in fact submarines launched in 1955 and scrapped in 1968. Strange name choice for a vessel that wasn't even armed though. It was mostly used as a testbed and trial boat, later being a training vessel against other ships, as a target practice. It didn't have the most stellar reputation as the engine room would routinely catch fire and flood the halls with noxious fumes. There seems to be a myriad of non-navy vessels named the Excalibur, like the jack-up barge and a tanker, but other than the couple I've been able to dig up, the name doesn't seem to be often applied to military maritime vessels. This leads me to believe that the ships in Trek were named after the legendary sword. Kind of obvious now I say it out loud, being as Trek is, fiction, but yeah, no real way to tie in old vessels here. So the first Excalibur that we learn of in Star Trek is potentially an NX class, pre-Federation, but it had the registry NX-03, and this was shared by the Challenger. As the original NX vessels were named after the NASA shuttles, the latter seems to be a likelier contender for that registry, but there may still have been an NX Excalibur. Again, beta content strikes with conflicting stories. There was also a USS Excalibur in 2240 under the command of Captain Roland Bannock, but not too much was known on this vessel besides its involvement in the Battle of Donatu 5, not even its make. The Constitution line has included many namesakes, solidifying many Starship legacies, the Excalibur included. The NCC 1664, originally penciled in as 1705, was constructed on lunar Tranquility Base in 2245, after the initial 4 Constitution vessels. This ship suffered a tragic fate at the virtual hands of the M5 computer as it was destroyed by the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 during war games where the computer usurped control of Kirk's vessel. All 400 aboard were lost. There are references to an Excalibur II, a second Constitution-class starship, the NCC 1711, that was built to refit standards around the mid-2270s and in operation in 2294 under the command of Captain DeCampo. But this also clashes with the date of another USS Excalibur, a Miranda class in 2288, although as the name of the former was technically the Excalibur II, there could have been both vessels in operation at the same time, especially as the Miranda class was a training vessel. It just seems a little confusing to have both ships out there at the same time. The backbone of the Federation, the Excelsior class, saw one of its initial ilk named the USS Excalibur NCC 2004. It served throughout the end of the 2200s and up until 2360, where it was eventually mothballed. That is a long time to serve, but hey, it was an Excelsior class and Starfleet rocked that ship for a long time. The USS Excalibur NCC 26517 was an Ambassador-class starship. Launched in the mid-24th century, the first time we hear of it is in 2365 under the command of Captain Morgan Korsmo. Later assigned to Captain Al Smutko, who stepped aside to allow Commander William Riker to run mission command when it was used as part of the Starfleet cloak detection grid to uncover Romulan involvement in the Klingon Civil War. The next year, it was attacked by a Borg cube and lost several members to the collective. By 2373, Captain Korsmo had been returned to the captain's chair and his XO was Commander Shelby. It took damage in the Battle of Sector 001 and underwent a refit. This is where Captain Calhoun took command and Shelby continued in her position as XO after being considered but denied a promotion. It lasted until 2376, when it fell victim to a computer virus that destroyed the vessel. The next year, there was a Galaxy class that, along with the name, was granted a legacy registry of NCC 76517-A. She was originally intended to be placed under Captain Elizabeth Shelby, who at the time was in command of the Exeter, but instead she took command of the Trident. Captain Calhoun, Shelby's now husband, resumed his post after being presumed KIA and commanded the Excalibur A as it served in the Borg invasion of 2381. In 2391, Starfleet commissioned the Excalibur class of starship, suggesting the retirement of the previous Galaxy class. The namesake was chosen to honour the Constitution class Excalibur and the lives lost as the design resembled a streamlined Connie. The first being the USS Excalibur NCC 94547. It was a very modular vessel capable of handling large refits with ease to fit different mission profiles. One feature of this ship was that it had an overabundance of power from its Class 8 warp core. It was a refinement of current Starfleet technologies and could shift its excessive power to be incredibly fast one second and hardened shielding the next. It was seen by many as the literal poster vessel for ushering in Starfleet into the new century. It was still in use by 2410, though lagging behind contemporary vessels. So, the Excalibur, like the Exeter and the Enterprise, seems to have been a Constitution, an Excelsior, and an Ambassador at some stage, with a little deviation around the late 23rd century and maybe an NX. But in the expanded stories, went on to become a Galaxy class. Like the Exeter, it seems to lag a generation behind the Enterprise in terms of ship class, but hey, not bad for a non-hero ship. From its mission profiles, the vessel seems to have been assigned as an all-rounder for most of its iterations, with the Excalibur class taking that to a whole new level, with its efficient and excessive power transfer systems, meaning that it could be a jack of all trades and a master of one at a time. With the lackluster history of the name in our real history, I guess it's down to fiction to cement the name as a worthy one, just as the legend from which the name is pulled. Thanks for watching this video on the legacy of the Star Trek vessel, the Excalibur. And if you think of other ships you want me to cover, drop them in the comments and I'll see what I can dig up. Thanks again, and until next time, I've been Rick, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.